my expectation is that like nobody's hiring people. And then I was running a monthly meetup that I do for Director Plus and also for CTOs at scale in New York last month. I'm like, just out of interest, we're talking about talent in November. Anyone actually hiring? And 60% of the hands in the room went up. So just for those of you out there, it turns out that some people are hiring, even if that's not maybe the sense we get across. And James, I'd ask you, like, are you hiring at the moment? Like, where are you on that? Can I continue on that?
Pretty actively hiring. I think we're definitely focused on specific filling specific roles and gaps in our organization. But we are. I think this is a great time to be hiring. There's some amazing talent on the market, folks that I would otherwise not have been able to have access to. So yeah, I think it's a good opportunity to pick up if you're looking to fill sort of strategic gaps in your organization. There's some great people out there.
Yeah. And I think just to kind of follow on with that theme of like setting the context, it was really interesting to me because firstly, I think you highlighted a great point, which is some of the talent available. Got a friend who's CTO at Bloomberg Media, and he was talking about this amazing program that Bloomberg runs for basically getting people into software engineering. And he's like, dude, we're making out like bandits right now. We're getting like, first choice from Stanford and MIT are coming into the Bloomberg program, which wouldn't always have been the case across the board just because so many other people are not hiring. But I do think
I think he's saying FANG is not hiring. So the prime candidates out of Stanford and MIT, instead of going to Facebook or Amazon or Microsoft or Apple, are open to other opportunities, which is their loss and our gain. So
absolutely. And I've certainly seen that too. Although it seems to be this weird thing. I think Gurgley, the pragmatic engineer, the author of that, is a great newsletter. He was talking about it's this really weird bifurcated market where hiring managers are saying we can't get great talent, and amazing engineers are saying we can't get an interview. It feels like it's a bigger matching problem. So do you have any opinions? I've certainly got some thoughts, and I might share one or two, given that it's just the two of us chatting. Do you have any opinions as to why it is so much harder for great engineers to find a role, given the fact that there are good companies hiring?
I can only assume. I was talking to a mid-career engineer last week, and she said to me, "It's so easy to submit your resume. Like all of these systems are basically automated. People can construct cover letters in AI. So you can basically go down a list of 80 jobs and just click submit with some minor customization of your cover letter or no customization. And I think some people are throwing out I've seen a database, so I should apply for a DBA job, like that sort of approach. And I think that's overwhelmed some organizations. I do talk to talent managers who are like, we get 1,500, 1,600 applicants for these things, and I don't know which of these candidates is good. At least in the past, if there was 80 candidates, I could go through and make some correlations. There's 1,500 candidates, and 1,700 of them, 700 of them are just as Java programmer at Bank of America. I don't know what's the difference between one Java programmer at Bank of America and another. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm not sure I would know the answer of that either.
That makes sense. Well, I think it's hard, right? So firstly, it's easy to apply for everything. Now there are AI tools to generate as much work slot submissions as you want. Secondly, it's not super hard to get an AI that, quite frankly, does as good a job stuffing keywords as a top-level filter will do looking for keywords. So what you end up with is 1,500 qualified candidates, of which 7 are probably worth interviewing. The question then is, what is the secondary signal that you can start to look for? And I mean, this feels like a tractable problem, right? Like it's kind of like when you think about crypto, there's proof of work, right? So, I mean, I suppose you can hack the GitHub. You can't hack time. If I'm looking for the number of contributions you've made to open source GitHub over the last 3 years, good news is it will take you at least 3 years to hack that, no matter how good your vibe coding auto submission is. Do you think there are any second level signals. And the problem is that this becomes exclusionary in negative ways, right?
Yeah.
For example, contributing to open source is a great thing if you happen to be, privileged white dude with time on your hands, no kids, no family, nothing else to deal with. Of course you can do that. But I mean, can you think of, are there some secondary signals that you feel that we could start to build into this? Because this has to be the first topic, which is how do you winnow down these huge numbers of leads into something that's tractable for actually interviewing?
Yeah, I was talking about this same talent partner. I was chatting about the sort of secondary signals, and she said to me, "Oh, how about lists of companies that you've worked at, or lists of schools you went to?" And I was like, I don't know, I guess some combination of company and tenure maybe, but it doesn't, like some person who didn't like Google and spent 12 months there, is that the same as some person who spent 10 years at Google? That both of those people probably have pros and cons, right? Like, I'm not sure what the right thing there is. And I said, universities, like I hired someone from the University of Iowa years ago, and because I'm not American, I did no idea about, I knew Harvard and Stanford were fancy schools, but I had no idea about any other schools at the level below that. And when University of Iowa, they don't have a real great CS program. This person's absolutely fucking sensational. And I was like, maybe we shouldn't be considering graduates from MIT and Stanford as the only people in the world that we talk to. So that worries me too. Yeah, as you said, open source contributions,
blog posts, right?
Yeah, blog posts. I mean, all of that stuff is dependent on time and people who are able to. Like, I have very good friends who work at Apple, for example, who aren't even allowed to talk about their work, let alone put it on GitHub. So it is exclusionary from both, not only from a privilege point of view, but from also from those people for whom that isn't an option in their professional life.
We're at a really interesting time now in terms of the transformation. It seems that AI is probably more than Beanie Babies. It's probably still going to be here next year. Maybe it's going to have a real impact. And while I know that we're still working on how to leverage it, I find it hard to believe that there's not going to be a big change in how code is written over the next 3 to 5 years. As the models get better, the prompts, the tooling, the using multiple models, like checking each other, I feel like it's going to get better. If you say, I see still companies who say using AI is cheating, to the extent that some of them, like, you have to come into our office physically so we can make sure you don't have, a device. How do you feel about that? I've seen AI is cheating, don't use it. I've seen just disclose AI usage. You can use it on some things, not others. And I've seen other people say, AI, we want you to use it in our interview because, quite frankly, if you don't, we don't want to hire you because you're not excited enough about what's going to change. So where are you on that spectrum, and why?
I'm going to prefix to say that I'm not a curmudgeon. I know I'm noted for some fairly negative opinions about new technology, but I think it's supposed to be burnt by things in the past. I think AI as a coding tool, as a coding assistant, is incredible, right? Like, I have no desire to remember how to create a basic React app, right? Same way I worked on Puppet, for example, which is basically a configuration management language designed to abstract away remembering how Unix command works. Like, I have no desire to work out how to install a package on 10 different Unix platforms, right? That's what Cube does for me now, or Helm, or whatever it happens to be, right? So I have no interest in somebody who can recite every command flag of every Linux command, right? Like, meaningless to me. But so I think there's a bunch of stuff that AI does really well, and takes the boring stuff out of writing code. Particularly if you're someone like a Java developer, we're familiar with the fact that there's a mountain of meaningless skeleton code that goes into writing a good Java application. So with that caveat aside, I have no problem with people using AI to supplement or answer sort of take-home exams and stuff like that. Currently my approach to sort of addressing the AI is cheating, and I will put cheating in inverted commas, is that if we find somebody who we think has answered the question well and we bring them in, we always pair with, we have an engineer pair with another engineer, with a candidate, and we ask them to make a change. And I'm okay if they use AI in that process, but I want them to tell me that they understand how the code works. My concern is somebody spits out Claude is remarkably smart. you can connect it to a repo like the company's question thing and say, please answer this question, right? And sometimes it's really obvious they've done that. Like AI can't help but it loves writing code, so it spits out way too much code. It spits out readmes that are very distinctive and tests that are very distinctive, and but again, you have to be a reasonably I don't know, maybe not hugely experienced, but you at least recognize that this is behavior. Like what's the classic one? If you see a lot of M dashes in text, I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm a philosophy major, so I know how to use an M dash, but I'm pretty sure most computer scientists don't. So I see a lot of M dashes in text, and I'm like, you wrote this with AI. So I think that I'm comfortable with it being used as an assistant, as a tool. I think that demonstrates someone is there's a new tool they picked up, they know how to use, they don't incorporate it, but do they know how to use it well? And do they know how to use it in such a way that they still have an understanding of what they're building, and are able to reason about it in a way that it isn't just oh my God, it produced this code and I have no idea what the code does, but it sort of works.
I got another question in the chat, which I think I really like, which is, should we look at how strong somebody is when we're interviewing them at leveraging AI for navigating a problem, or how they use prompts and structures? Do you feel that competence in prompting and engaging with large language models is a useful piece of the signal you want in terms of whether somebody's going to make a good augmented engineer?
I do think so, and I think this comes back to I interviewed at a FANG company, we'll call it, some years ago, many years ago, and the person asked me a very obscure question about how the way the Linux kernel does a particular thing, and I answered the question as best I could. It's I'm definitely not a deep kernel person, and the response from the guy was like, oh, do you not understand about this, and this? And I'm like, well, no. I would go and look at the source code, and I would I'd look at the mailing list, and I'd find somebody, if I knew somebody and ask the question. He's like, oh, yeah, no. And that person blacklisted me from that company. That was the person was the thumbs down in that interview cycle. And when I said to the recruiter, I know exactly what happened here. I didn't answer this question like I know the answer to this. I'm like,
right.
That seems dumb. Why would I remember that particular thing? Unless that was my day job, I worked at Red Hat and I was deep in the guts of Linux kernel. And you look it up, you don't know, you Google it back in the olden days. So why wouldn't you replace that with AI? Obviously you need to interpret the answer. You need to make sure that validate it. Maybe you ask it. It's about how good you are, well you ask the question. But yeah, that's definitely to me as somebody says I would solve that problem by asking the AI, and I would check this, and this. 100%. Yeah.